Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this training course on alert acknowledgments in version 9 of the KnowledgeSync solution. This is the second of two training courses on the Acknowledgements module. Now I'd like to start out by taking a look at the documentation on alert acknowledgments. The chapter on acknowledgments starts out by directing you to download a special event pack for the acknowledgments module. So let's begin by going out to our web browser and going to the KnowledgeSync downloads site. There are in fact three items that we recommend downloading from this page. The first is the current version of KnowledgeSync. The second is the KnowledgeSync manual. And thirdly and finally is the Alert Acknowledgements event pack. This event pack consists of two applications that allow you to learn and play with the Acknowledgements module. So let's now jump into KnowledgeSync so that we can take a look at what those two applications are. So now we assume that you have downloaded these three components, you have installed the KnowledgeSync application, and you have just executed the Alert Acknowledgements event pack. This event pack will install two applications inside of your KnowledgeSync installation. The first of those is called the Erp Sample. This event pack points at a mini ERP database that ships with the KnowledgeSync solution. It's designed with just a single event that retrieves one record, an order, from this mini ERP database, and it triggers an alert message via email, an order confirmation that asks for the recipient of that alert, typically the customer, to acknowledge receipt of that message and to specify whether or not the details of their order is correct. We'll have a closer look at this event a little bit later on. The second application that is installed with the Acknowledgements event pack is called, quite simply, Acknowledgements. And this event pack contains a number of queries and events that allow KnowledgeSync itself to monitor its own acknowledgments. This includes acknowledgments that were requested today, acknowledgments that have been received today, as well as acknowledgments that were requested but have not yet been received. But for now, let's focus on configuring KnowledgeSync to send out an acknowledgement about an order confirmation. For that, we're going to jump back into the manual for just a couple of moments. So scrolling down in the manual, we come to the section that talks about technical requirements of the Acknowledgements module and how our technical support staff can help you. It's important to note that the Alert Acknowledgements part of KnowledgeSync definitely requires a bit more technical expertise than the remainder of the KnowledgeSync solution. You need to be familiar with your organization's IT security settings. You need to know how to open a port. You need to know the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. You need to be familiar with concepts such as firewall, security certificates, and the like. If you don't have that expertise, we strongly recommend that you use the services of a consultant who has that expertise. It's also important to note that VineyardSoft's technical support staff can assist you in configuring acknowledgments, but we cannot advise you or make any changes to your organization's security settings. We cannot open ports, we cannot make changes to your firewall, etc. Okay. So assuming that you have or have access to the technical expertise to configure alert acknowledgments, we can now start to talk about what those acknowledgments consist of. Now in KnowledgeSync, there are 6 types of acknowledgments, and they're listed on the current page of the documentation. It starts with the simplest acknowledgment form that allows an alert recipient to simply say, yes, I acknowledge receipt of this alert. And it goes all the way down through the most sophisticated acknowledgement form that allows an alert recipient to say, well, yes, I've got the alert, but I will or won't be able to act on it. I need to cancel the related task or action about this alert, or I need to put in some details about the action that I'll be taking. For example, a field service technician might acknowledge a task but say that they won't be able to work on it for a number of days pending the receipt of a specific part that that service job requires. Now, it's very important to note that this group of 6 acknowledgement forms can be specific to each application that you have set up in KnowledgeSync. For example, you might want to send acknowledgments about information in your ERP database, and so you can configure a distinct set of 6 acknowledgement forms for your ERP application. At the same time, you might have a sales or CRM application, and you can designate a separate distinct group of 6 acknowledgement forms for that sales application. So for each branch or application that you have in KnowledgeSync, you can set up a distinct set of 6 acknowledgement forms. Okay, let's go back to our documentation. So when you install version 9 or higher of KnowledgeSync, the Acknowledgements module is automatically installed. And so now we get to the point of how do I actually set up acknowledgments for myself. So let's minimize the documentation. Let's close out of our web browser, and let's focus on KnowledgeSync. So first of all, let's begin with the event pack that you installed and the 2 applications, starting with the ERP or sample application. Let's go to the properties of this application, and let's look at its connection. This refers to the ODBC source that KnowledgeSync will use for connecting with or reading data from the underlying database. In this case, KnowledgeSync is using an ODBC source called KS Sample. Let's go into ODBC and take a look at that same ODBC source. KS Sample is referring to a small ERP database. It is in fact a Microsoft Access database called KS_sample, and it is stored by default in the KnowledgeSync data folder. Okay, let's go back into KnowledgeSync, and now let's look at the second application that was installed by the Acknowledgements event pack called Acknowledgements. If we go into properties here and once again choose to edit the connection, you'll notice that this application is using an ODBC source called KS Internal. And if we take a look at KS Internal and configure that source, you'll see that it's pointing to your KnowledgeSync database itself. And this database will vary. It can be a SQL Server database, or for the purpose of this training session, it's pointing to the KnowledgeSync Microsoft Access database. Okay, let's exit completely out of ODBC. And now let's talk about enabling acknowledgments. Now, we want to enable acknowledgments for our ERP application. We want KnowledgeSync to send an alert and order confirmation that allows the recipient to acknowledge receipt of that alert and to specify whether or not their order is correct. So acknowledgement configuration data is also stored within the properties of an application. So I'm going to click on properties, but I'm not going to go into the ODBC connection. In this case, I'm going to look at the final 3 fields on this window, as these are the 3 fields that control the enabling of acknowledgments for a given application in KnowledgeSync. The first of these fields is specifying the web address or URL that I'm going to use for the purpose of receiving acknowledgments. Please refer to the KnowledgeSync documentation on the values for this field. Very specifically, there is a particular value, I've specified it here, that you can use for testing purposes. Again, please refer to the KnowledgeSync manual for more details on this field. If appropriate, you do need to specify the secure server certificate if you're using HTTPS. And that brings us to the third and final acknowledgement setup field, titled Acknowledgement Template File 1. If we hit our Browse button, we're going to get automatically brought once again to the KnowledgeSync data folder. And right now, I have only one file called Acknowledgement Template 1. Let me cancel from this window for a moment and go into Windows Explorer. So once again, I am in the KnowledgeSync data folder. And if you recall, I said that there are 6 different types of acknowledgement forms, depending upon what information you want a person to specify when they're acknowledging receipt of an alert. Here are the 6 pre-configured forms that ship with the KnowledgeSync solution. Again, keep in mind that each application in KnowledgeSync, whether it's ERP or CRM or HR, can use its own group of 6 acknowledgement forms. And here, we just go in this option again, KnowledgeSync is asking you to specify what is the name of the first template form for this group of 6. So let's go back to Windows Explorer. There we are. And let's take a look at one of these acknowledgement forms. I'm going to open or double-click on this acknowledgement form. This, as I said, is acknowledgement form number 1. It simply allows a person receiving an alert to say, yes, I have received and I acknowledge receipt of this alert. Now, if we take a look at the HTML that sits behind this form, let's now open this form, but let's open it with Notepad. What you're going to see is HTML syntax. And it's very important to note that this is a template. This is editable. The templates that we provide are very simple. They do not include logos or company names or different fonts and formats and colors of text. But you have 100% control over what you want this form to look like. Now, of course, that does require that you be familiar with HTML syntax if you do wish to change the look or design of this form. Once again, I'm going to close out this window. Let's just open up this form again to see what a person would see when they are actually entering their acknowledgement. Please note that the fields here within curly braces, event who, event subject, and event message, are all going to be automatically filled in with the details of the alert that a recipient is acknowledging. And now it's really helpful to actually pull all these pieces together. So let's go back into KnowledgeSync, and let's take a look at this particular event. So this is our order confirmation event. Before we run it, I'm just going to open it for you. Please note that this event is using the query that we looked at earlier. It's retrieving just that one order record. Do make sure that when you go into the email tab of this event that you make sure to specify the email account that KnowledgeSync is going to use to send this alert from. Now let's pause a moment here on the email tab. You can see the subject of the email as well as the first few lines of detail. But here's an important quality. Once you have enabled an application to use acknowledgments, you're going to see something new in the list of available values for use in message content. What you see up here are all of the fields from this event's query. But if I scroll this list down, you'll see some special fields that have to do with acknowledgments. And these fields show up only if you have filled out that properties window and have enabled this application to use acknowledgments. Now, just because you enable an application to use acknowledgments, that doesn't mean that every event has to send acknowledgments. If you choose to include one of these fields in an alert message, then that particular event will be enabled to send out and receive acknowledgments. Okay, so you'll notice if I go down to the body of this alert message, we've got some fields about the order. We've then got text that reads, is this order correct? Please click on the link below, and then on the acknowledgement form, please select yes to confirm the order, no to request changes to the order, or on cancel to cancel the entire order. And notice the field that follows. Acknowledge, yes, no, cancel, response. Every alert message would make use of just one of these acknowledgement options depending upon what you wanted to prompt the alert recipient to be able to say on their acknowledgement form. Do you want them just to acknowledge the receipt, or do you want them to be able to acknowledge the receipt and also specify a yes answer, a no answer, or some kind of response? And I would encourage you to take a look at the pre-configured templates to see what each of these look like. You may recall that the template number 1 was asking a person simply to acknowledge receipt of the alert. Whereas if we take a look at acknowledgement form number 6, a little bit more sophisticated, as we have room now for the recipient to specify yes, no, cancel, and also put in comments of their own. Also, please note that in addition to these 6 templates, there are 2 additional web forms that you may also customize. One is a confirmation page, and one is a page that comes up if someone tries to acknowledge an event that is not permissible and will result in an error message being displayed to that person. Okay, so simply by putting this field into an alert message, I am now allowing the recipient to acknowledge receipt of this alert. So the last thing that I need to specify for this alert is a recipient. In this case, I'm going to send this alert message to myself via email. So that all looks good. Let's exit from this particular event and let's run it. So I'm going to say schedule this now, yes, and we're going to let this event run. This event should trigger an alert message sent to me about this order. So let's once again fire up a web browser and let's go into my Gmail account and see if that alert message, that order confirmation, has arrived. So Gmail, and order confirmation for Vineyard Tomasino. Let's open up this particular email alert message, and it looks very familiar to the email tab of the event we were just looking at, except in this case, it's got some fields of data filled in. The acknowledgement process is done by the alert recipient clicking on the acknowledgement link that appears in their alert message. I'm going to do so right now. And I should come to a form that once again looks somewhat familiar to you. So here is the acknowledgement form. The details about the event that was triggered are shown for me. Down at the bottom of this form, I have the ability to specify yes, no, or cancel. And let's just say that the order is all set. Looks good. And we will submit our acknowledgement. This is the acknowledgement confirmation form, nothing spectacular, simply thanking me for entering my acknowledgement. So we can exit from our browser, and now we're back into KnowledgeSync. And we can finish this up by seeing how KnowledgeSync tracks the acknowledgements that have been sent. Now, there are a couple different ways that we can do this. We can go into this option for acknowledgements. This is the application that monitors acknowledgements that KnowledgeSync has sent out, what have been requested, received, etc. So for example, I can come into this query for acknowledgements that have been requested today. Let's go to our preview tab, and we can see this one acknowledgement has been requested today. Likewise, I could also go into acknowledgements received today. But personally, I prefer using the KnowledgeSync Monitor module. So let's minimize the Event Manager. Let's go into the Monitor. And here we have, let's take a look under Application Events, Check Today. Let's start here. So this is the event that we just triggered, that we just checked for. Let's see, was it triggered by matching conditions? Yes, it was. It was met by a single record. Now, what I'd like to do in Triggered Today is to start out by looking at the deliverables for an event. So this event triggered a single deliverable, an email message that was sent to me. I can see the email address that it was sent to and whether or not the email alert message was successfully delivered, and if so, when. But of course, what we're really waiting for here are the acknowledgements. So by clicking on the Acknowledgements button at the bottom of the monitor window, I'm able to see that this email message, which was sent to me, has been acknowledged. The number of minutes between when the alert was delivered and when the acknowledgement was sent back was just a single minute. Pretty quick on the trigger there. The answer was yes. My additional comments was that the order is all set and that it looks, and I think that's good. And so everything here is available for me to see, not only what acknowledgments have been requested, but how they've been sent back, and very importantly, the response time. Personally, I think that this response time is particularly valuable in a customer service environment where you have SLAs or service levels, such as responding within an hour, resolving within 4 hours. This is quite helpful in that vein. I'd like to finish this training session by coming back here into the KnowledgeSync Event Manager. Let's minimize the monitor window behind us to just talk about one last thing. If we open up acknowledgments, let's look at acknowledgments that were received today. There should be one there. Oh, we've got two there. So I guess I triggered one a little bit earlier this morning. If we take a closer look at this query, what you'll see is that this is retrieving data from a table within the KnowledgeSync database called Acknowledge. This is the table in KnowledgeSync that stores the details of received acknowledgments. There are a number of fields of information about the acknowledgments that have been received, and we encourage you to take a look at these queries to get a sense of what acknowledgment data is stored where in the KnowledgeSync application. The one item I'd like to point out to you actually is in a separate query. So let me open just one more query. Acknowledgments that have been requested today. If we look at the Filters tab of this query, you're going to see a filter called Package Section is equal to 555. This is kind of the key to monitoring alerts that have been sent out that have requested acknowledgments. This field called section will always equal 555. That is KnowledgeSync's internal way of saying that this alert requested an acknowledgment. And again, have a look at all of these pre-configured queries and even the events around them for monitoring acknowledgment data within the KnowledgeSync database, or, as I've done, just use the monitor module itself to be able to keep track of what alerts have been sent and what acknowledgments have or have not been received. That wraps up this training course on the Alert Acknowledgements module in KnowledgeSync. I'd like to thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have questions about this module, do feel free to reach out to our tech support department. They are here to help you. Just do be aware, once again, that they cannot suggest or make any changes to your own organization's security settings, such as opening ports or changing values in your firewall. So, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again in another KnowledgeSync training course. Take care.